On this week's episode, I'm joined by Hugo Rosa, dad and Portuguese comedian. We discuss, amongst other things, driving in Portugal, Portuguese in-laws, Portuguese names, parenthood, the comedy scene in Lisbon, and we try to answer the question, are Portuguese people funny? Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Portugal, The Simple Life, and I'm really excited to be joined here by Hugo Rosa. Hugo, hello, and thank you for being on the podcast.
Hi, Dylan. Thank you for the invitation. So nice to meet you.
Likewise. So you're in your in-laws' place at the moment?
Yeah.
How's that going?
I'm really well, actually. And to make it even more, not awkward, because that's a strange word, but make it harder, I'm at my in-laws without the wife. So the wife had to stay working in Lisbon. But because
are you in trouble or something? Are you in trouble that your wife sent you?
I might be. I left her a list of tasks to do, and one of them was don't sleep with other people. So I hope she follows up on that. No, yeah. So I'm at my in-laws because they wanted to spend time with the grandkids. So I'm really deep in the inside of Portugal right now. Small place.
Awesome. Well, we'll get onto Portugal and your Portugal.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so my name is Hugo. I am a stand-up comedian. I've been doing it for 12 years here in Lisbon. Also a bit in English in the last few years. A bit of a English comedy scene has come up in the last few years. And I'm also a computer scientist at EDP, so which is the biggest utilities company here in Portugal. And between that and the family, a lot of things to manage, a lot of careers to work on, and that's me pretty much.
Awesome. In Portugal, your name is, you'd pronounce the name in Portuguese, you'd pronounce the name Hugo, but yeah, exactly. I said Hugo, because we've got a lot of people listening from all over the world, so Hugo just sounds like a noise. So I'd rather just go.
Dude, there's a comedian, which I think it'd be great here because he works in radio, which is Duarte Pitangrão. And okay. He has the exact same bit, which is he's talking about names for his kids. And he always does this when he follows and he goes after me, which is like, Hugo. Hugo is not a name. Yeah. Hugo is a noise. It's something you make when you have something stuck up your throat, So yeah, I get that a lot.
And then, you got Nuno, which is quite a common name. And for like English speaking people, like Nuno is like something that you say to somebody when you feel sorry for them. You go, oh, Nuno. Oh, Nuno. Yeah. It's quite funny. And then Hui just sounds like you're clearing your throat.
Yeah. And actually, I think it's in Russian that Hui means the male genitalia or something like that.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was like a common childish gag amongst kids.
I didn't know that.
I might be pronouncing something wrong, but if you interview some Russians, please confirm.
I'm not too sure if that's a good idea right now.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, let's give it a few years. Yeah.
Let's just let this whole war thing blow over.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. Yeah.
Hugo, tell us a little bit about where you're from, and sort of your background in which part of the country you're from, and your experience. What you like about it? What do you like about your hometown?
Yeah, so I'm from. My parents are from small villages around Leiria, but I was born in Lisbon, which is in Portela de Sacavém, nearby the airports. It's the big brown and white buildings you see coming up from Ponte Vasco da Gama. And so I was born in it. I bought a house in it. So when I was looking to move, I bought a house in the same neighborhood. And it's really a small neighborhood, but really compact, which is about like, I'm going to give you some trivia about it right now. When it was starting to be built in like 40 years ago, for quite a while, it was the highest density location in Europe because it's pretty much 1 square kilometer with something like 20,000 people in it because it's all built vertically, like 10-story, 11-story buildings. And it was built by design. So when they started building, they knew they were building a 200 building, I don't know how many blocks, location. And if you look at from above, it's like symmetrical. In the middle, you have the shopping center, which is round and it has a roundabout, and you have buildings on the left, buildings up and above, a few diagonally. So it was like the first urban area that was projected and planned to be that way from the beginning here in Portugal. So, and for a while it was the highest density. For a while it was like the first shopping center in Portugal. And I just really like it because it feels familiar. So to give you like a small insight, up to the age of 18, the only real reason I had to go into Lisbon, because this is just on the outskirts of Lisbon, was to go out with my friends at night. So for anything else, I had it in Portela. Schools, friends, place to play tennis, place to play football. All my life was dealt there. So this is something I really enjoyed and still do actually, because it's well taken care of, and it has a small community vibe within 20,000 people.
Yeah. So it was the highest density location in Europe at one stage.
In Europe, yeah.
Wow,
yeah,
that's got to be the only time we've ever been the highest density in Portugal.
Yeah, that's true.
Crazy.
Because it's literally, I think it's something like 200 different buildings, all of them with at least two houses per floor, 11th floor. I mean, it's really high density.
Yeah.
Right now, it's quite common. You have plenty of those around the world. But when it started being built in like the early 80s up until maybe early 90s, it was the most high density one in Europe.
Where you mentioned your folks are from near to Leiria. Whereabouts?
Yeah, my mom's from Marinha Grande, which is the place, it's very famous for
glass and
the
malt.
glass work. Exactly. Yeah. And my father is from a very small village near Leiria called Change, which is famous for Change. Yeah. It's hard to say because it has two sounds that are very specific to Portugal. So it's famous for pig breeding, which is pretty much what they did around the area. So when you go in, you always smell the pig manure, in the air, because everybody.
If the wind's blowing the wrong direction, it's a tough.
Whichever direction the wind's blowing.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. The neighbors may feel it dependingly, but in there they always feel it.
I'm not far from Leiria. I'm in Abidos.
I
work in São Martinho de Porto, which is right there. And we spent a weekend not long ago in Água de Madeiras and São Pedro do Moel, which are the beaches near to.
Yeah, my grandparents on my mother's side had a house in São Pedro do Moel. They still do a very small cottage, which I'm dying to renovate and rent. But my mom has such a big attachment to it that she won't let me yet, which is a shame because it's a very cute place and it's near the beach. But yeah, I've spent many summers in São Pedro do Moel.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a beautiful place. Yeah. That coastline is phenomenal.
That area right there with what is it? Praia de Mós? No, something. Oh, crap. Just like you have like 4 or 5 beaches along.
Yeah, just all the way along, and so little construction, and it's just amazing. I mean, São Pedro do Moel is the biggest kind of area of construction. The rest are just these little beaches, and it's stunning. It's stunning.
Yeah.
How did you get into comedy?
Well, actually, there's a funny story to it because I've always loved comedy. Ever since I think I got to know it like watching Seinfeld on TV back in '94, which I would have been 12 or something, and it was just really funny. What were those small bits in the middle of the episode where we was talking to a crowd? And by the time the internet came, I was just downloading stand-up comedy content daily, like 1, 2, 3 hours of my day would go to watching stand-up comedy. And for a long time, that's all it was. It was like an interest. And about 2010 or 2009, I was 26 at that point, I met up with a Serbian friend in Belgrade. And we were having no, I wouldn't say drunkenly, but we had drunk a bit. And we were having one of those metaphysical, what's the meaning of life conversations. And he shared a few things from his personal life because he remembered, I think, having his 12th birthday during the bombing of Belgrade, when it was back, it was Yugoslavia. And and because of that, he had a very, you have to do what you love in life perspective. And I was always raised a bit to do the responsible thing in life, which is get a good job, get a good family, blah, blah, blah.
Farm some pigs.
Farm some pigs, exactly, perfectly. And but he was like, okay, so what do you love? I'm not saying what you love doing, what are you interested in? And I was like, oh dude, I have a huge love for stand-up comedy. Just try it, just figure it out, try it, and if it works, it does. If it does, it does not. So I came back to Portugal, found a training or in stand-up comedy, like 10 classes, something like that. Did the first time, went very well. Did the second time, went horribly wrong. And I was like, this is interesting. This mix 50-50, let's see what happens. And yeah, I've just been hooked to it ever since, and it's been 12 years now.
Okay, you've got to tell us what happened that it went horribly wrong.
Oh, I was inexperienced. The first time I did it, because it was like the gala for the students of that training. We invite our friends over. We had 160 people in. It was a theater, like perfect conditions, and I had some good ideas. Then the second time, it was like a bar, 25 people. Nobody knew the comics were going there, and I was not experienced enough at that point to deal with, let's call it, less than perfect conditions for stand up. So that was pretty much it.
Yeah. You mentioned that the comedy scene in Portugal now, the English comedy scene in Portugal, well, let's say Lisbon, has kind of developed now the last few years. Why is that? Why has that happened?
Well, I think the flame of it were a community of digital nomads here in Lisbon, which is really thriving. So they have I think I have meetups every day, or at least every week, and a bunch of them come up. So that was when working remotely was kind of a fantasy that people heard about, and a lot of people in Europe were doing it. So there was this community of digital nomads, and they just remembered to organize one of those nights. And the main, let's call it, the main person behind this community, a guy named Ash, he organized it, and just 100 people showed up, which is the average for one of their meetups, and it was a hit. And he had a few, I think he had a few comics passing by who were in town, and he got to know them, and they organized the night. It was a success. He did some more. And then the pandemic came, so everything shut down. But when it reopened, he went back at it. And by that time, some bonds had been made with the Berlin scene, which I heard is really, really, really strong in English. And I think also the London scene. André Freitas, during this time, had gone to the UK, and now he's back here. So he brought a lot of connections from comics who could pass by and do a set. Step by step, more nights started coming up, and I think you have one English-speaking night per day of the week at this moment. So you could do stand up in English every day of the week if you wanted now in Lisbon. So it's really, really, really good, actually.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're in a place that gives you enough content to develop your comedy in Portugal?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, actually, I do. So I'm a father of two. I have a 5-year-old girl and a 1-year-old boy. So just parenting in general is a rich. You're a father as well, right? You have kids.
They give you the best stories.
Yeah, I mean, just either things they do or something like just looking at things they see but out of context, because they see it through kids' eyes and I see it through an adult perspective. I can give you a really quick example. I went to Disneyland 2 weeks ago with my oldest kid. She'd be dying to go. She's in love with all the princesses, the whole thing. And during one of the parades, the characters are singing. There's, Sleeping Beauty, there's blah, blah. And there was Ariel, the mermaid princess. And it's at one point mid-song, she pulls a string and water flows over her in a very princess way. And I know my kids saw that through princess eyes, but what I saw was a stripper move, right? That's something that strippers do at strip clubs, so I've heard. So
apparently we cannot confirm or deny without.
I've been told, and yeah, so that's this thing that she has her innocent looking of the world, and I, as an adult, have a very different view of the world. Sometimes, the disparity between those two views it can produce funny content. So whenever I have the time to produce new material, I try to bring it up on stage, and the kids are endless source of material.
Yeah. How I mean, for you've grown up with by the sounds of things a bit of a diverse sort of exposure to things, which is quite normal in Portugal. You'll have someone that lives in the city, but they've got a parent that has, or an uncle or an aunt. We spoke off camera about the wine. You said your in-laws have got some pretty strong homemade wine. I mean, how did growing up in the background that you had influence your comedy as well?
Well, I think the key thing, and actually I think it became more apparent when we didn't marry, but when I joined up with Diana, who's my wife. I call her wife. She does not appreciate that because we're not married, but we've been together 11 years. And
Why? Is it because she actually wants you to put a ring on that finger?
Yeah, actually, I think we're gonna have that conversation soon. At the point we were in our lives, and we're like, okay, do we want to marry first or have kids first? And we're like, we want to have kids. So we went through that way. And after having kids, like the commitment of marriage doesn't seem as necessary because you already made the most important commitment you've made to each other, which is to raise human beings together. So yeah, it doesn't seem as impactful now, which is stupid, could be very well a reason to just do it and not worry about it. So yeah, we'll think about it. But yeah, so she's even from a more rural upbringing than my parents, or what I got from my parents. So coming in all of these years to meet the parents and now being here, that's when I think I became more exposed to it, and it made me more self-aware of myself or of my privileges, because in Portugal is a good area, it's a fancy area, so I did have a bit of that. She makes fun of me because of that, of being she calls it portelinha, which is we have certain tics or ways of saying or preferences, and so being exposed to the opposite makes me more self-aware of myself. And I think a good comedian is a self-aware person. Okay, if you ever go to a stand-up comedy show and you do a set, or you see somebody do a set, and then you come outside and they think they did great, even though they did it very apparently wrong, that person is not very self-aware. Therefore, he or she can never be a good comedian. That's my opinion, because the feedback is so apparent. You either make them laugh or you didn't. You planned to make them laugh 15 times and they laughed 2. That was a bad set. It's binary. It's not a matter, the audience. No, it's binary, and some people don't see it. So I think self-awareness it's a key role that I think I've developed for myself, but maybe that's me being self-unaware. But still, I think that's one of my strong suits.
Listen, I mean, yeah, I think it's one of the harder art forms. If you're a musician, you can go through making people feel different things. A comedian, you've got one job, and that's it.
But there's wiggle room to do more. I used to do a bit which I cannot say here because it's way too I wouldn't say offensive, but dirty, which came from the experience of the birth of my daughter, and the reason why I think it worked was because I purposefully spent about a minute and a half setting up that as an emotional moment, the moment of the birth of my daughter. So I give very specific detail, I lower my voice, I sit down a bit, blah, 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 and people are taken in, hopefully, into feeling what I felt at that moment. And then I crack it with something I won't say here, but I crack it really, really hard. And so the disparity between this reality I was building up and the surprise of this very inappropriate thing I say at that moment is also comedy. So I think there's wiggle room to make people feel different things. But yeah, the purpose is a laugh. So if you take me through a minute and a half of emotional stuff, then I better have a really good laugh at the end of it.
Otherwise it could just be a novella.
Yeah, otherwise it's storytelling or poetry slam or something like that. Yeah, soap opera.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about being self-aware. It's a place. Portugal is a place where you are made to be self-aware. Like I must say, so? Traditionally, why? Portuguese parents will tell you when you're looking fat, when you're being naughty, when you shouldn't be wearing those pants. There's no that word, Portuguese word, that bruta. That's just brutal honesty. It's a real thing.
Yeah. I think that's true. I think that's fair. I see that in my parents. I see that in my in-laws. That's true. Yeah, we don't kid around. If something is, we say stuff as we see it. Yeah, that's at least the generation, let's call it, above us, the one that raised us, essentially. Yeah. They're definitely like that. Yeah.
João, sorry, Hugo, what do you like about
That's a fair error, okay? Everybody's João in Portugal. So
my brother-in-law and you kind of look like a João. I don't know if
I know everybody looks like João in Portugal.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Hugo, what do you like about Portugal? What do you like about your country?
Honestly, just, I wouldn't call the simplicity, because although that is in the title of your podcast, I just feel that we are, simple in a way that we don't meddle too much. We it feels like a safe country because we are reasonable. We don't meddle too much in foreign policy or foreign conflicts or whatever. So I feel like that we're not a violent country. We're not an unsafe country. So I think that because we don't have, let's draw the comparison by the extreme. United States is the self-proclaimed greatest country in the world, right? So that sort of attitude, like I am the best, I am the greatest.
I think they're reassessing that title,
Yeah, unfortunately, I think they'll reassess and come to the same conclusion, but we'll see. But so that sort of attitude and self-confidence or overconfidence is not something that I see in Portugal throughout the years, maybe since 16th century when we were all about colonizing. Ever since then, I think we've really been made to, okay, we're a small place, but from a small place can come really good things. And I think that's a healthy way of approaching life, and it gives a healthy lifestyle as well. So safety, good cuisine, that sort of stuff that makes you appreciate a country. And it's something that I really, really value. I remember being really enamored with the idea of, oh, I'll go to the States and I'll do stand-up comedy there. And then you start learning more about, because of recent events or not, about some of their politics and cultures. And I'm at a point in my life with family. I want peacefulness pretty much. And that's what Portugal gives me.
Anything that you don't like?
Yeah, I think we do suffer a bit from small country mentality, which is like whenever you want to do, I don't know, something either innovative or different, there's always a bit of that attitude where, oh, that's going to be hard to do, or you have to go over all of these hoops or all of these steps and this bureaucracy, and we just look at the challenges. Well, and you can tell I'm using a euphemism by this, because we look at the hard things, the obstacles, and not necessarily, we don't look at it as challenges, or we don't look at it as, we don't see the end game, which is, okay, if I do this, I don't know, if I want to open a business, then it's going to be really hard. That's like the first thing I think about whenever I have some new idea, or even in stand-up comedy. So I think we suffer a bit from that mentality overall as a country. And I see that, in companies, with people I've worked with, people who have managed me, I've seen that a lot. I think it's changing. And a big reason of it is, because of this digital acceleration and the fact that we've had Web Summit here and et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's changing, but I'd say it's still very present, and it annoys me a bit.
Yeah. What do you want to, I mean, for as you know, we've spoken about before, this podcast is for people that want to know more about Portugal and hear different perspectives about Portugal. So what do you want to tell people that things that you think they should know about our country, tips or even warnings about our beautiful country?
Well, honestly, warnings is really hard. I think if somebody who's listening is considering, either moving or visiting Portugal, they should know that very likely you will have a good experience, because we're a very right now a very tourism-oriented country, right? So we know, or we try to welcome. So I would say that you can enjoy, the classic. You can enjoy good weather. Right now, it's really nice out. You can enjoy really nice food. You can enjoy a safe country if you want to move in. Right now where I am, the village is so small that during the summer when it gets hot, my in-laws just sleep with the doors open. And even we used to have a cat, and then the cat scratched our daughter, and he moved here, so to speak. So the cat's, it's a country cat right now. And when they are out for like 2 days, they leave the door open so the cat can go in and out to eat foods, or if it's, so they don't lock the car doors. I better not say where I am, because this is a really big advertising for
us. Give us your address right now. Just let me just get a pen quickly.
Yeah. So I think this exemplifies, as although it's a small village, so it has its own context, but that's the mentality of people. Like, we know each other, even if it's in a big city, and we trust each other. And in small villages, it comes to the extreme of, we just leave stuff open. It doesn't matter. It's easier. I don't want to be having to lock. I was mocked when I came here for the first few times. I locked the car and they're like, why are you locking the car? That makes no sense. So, but I think it shows, but that's also partially true in cities like Lisbon or Porto. So I think the big thing is you can have a safe country here. You can have a safe place for living, a good standard of living. I remember visiting Diana when she was working in Brazil and when she was working in Angola, and these are very unsafe places, to live, or they have, let's call it, their own issues. And I was like, this is something I will never want to feel in a permanent address, which is I don't want to have be afraid to cross the road. And in Portugal, you definitely don't feel that. So I think that's like, for me, that's a big plus. And that's something I always advertise to people when I speak about Portugal.
I'm from Johannesburg and in South Africa.
Oh, yeah.
And there, your one of the things that you do when you pull up to a traffic light is you lock all of your doors.
Yeah,
and I did that the first time coming into Lisbon with a friend of mine, and we pulled up to a traffic light and I started locking all the doors, and he looked at me like, "What the hell are you doing?
What are you doing?
Are you crazy?"
Yeah.
Do you get along with your in-laws? You get along well?
I think I get along well. I have,
Do they know your name? Do they call you by the right name? Because mine calls me Vilma.
Really? That's so good.
My father, he can't pronounce my name, so I'm Vilma, which is a woman's name. So I try not to let that go to my head,
No, but I think that's also an in-law thing. I get along well with my in-laws, especially, we did most of the first quarantine here. So 3 months, moved in with them pretty much because, they have an open space, like they have their farm just below. So it was the best option for us to be, confined. But yeah, I get along fine with them. They have a different upbringing, a different life that I'm not used to, but, we adapt. But I remember a friend of mine, she also had a foreign husband. I think he's Polish, and her parents, his in-laws, also call him by a strange name because they also don't know how to pronounce his original name. So I think that's also a Portuguese trait. If we don't know something, we'll name it something funny that we'll always remember, and we're done with that, and that's it forever now.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Portuguese people, I mean, obviously people coming to Portugal are going to have interaction with Portuguese people. How would you describe Portuguese people to someone who doesn't know, to someone who's never been here?
I would say if you meet if you go to lunch like at a real Portuguese restaurant, so the kind of places that don't charge you 25 euros for a salad, like with tascas, which is essentially what we call them, right? If you go into a tasca and you see like a typical Lisbon person, so somebody who's been living their whole life, you'll see somebody who's like very quick on their feet. When I mean, like, both in terms of serving or having a quip, a small joke to shoot at you, but caring. And I think you see that care across pretty much every level or region of the country. So I think we always care about other people. We care about, especially family. I think we're very family connected people. I think it's very, very common, either the family is big or small, you always feel close to them. So most programs right now I do are family programs, maybe because of the stage of my life with kids, but either with my sister or some the parents, Diana's parents or cousins. So I'd say we're caring, family oriented people as a whole, regardless of the experiences we have from being in a big city, in a small city, or whatever. Would you agree with that? How long have you been here?
I've been here 13 years.
13. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Very much so. Yeah. Very caring. Yeah. Why are Portuguese people so caring? Because no one can really answer it besides that's kind of how we are. But why do you think?
Yeah, it's really strange looking inside in. Why are we caring? Well, that's a very good point. I don't know how to answer that. I really don't.
See, you're not helping me. You're not helping me. I need to know.
I know what values were passed on to me. You can say that maybe being a Catholic religion, being the base, at least most of our parents are very Catholic, not so much the next generation, but you can say those values are very heavy. They created very, church back in the day, and still today in small places like where I am right now. they're community opportunities. These are chances for you to be in community, and they bring people together in a community. So I think that maybe those values get passed on, even if you're not
I don't
a
know.
religious person.
Other Catholic countries aren't as friendly, so I'm not sure if it's a religious thing.
That's a good point. Yeah, I
Catholic
don't
Church
know.
can be pretty mean as well sometimes.
I
They make
know,
you
no, I
make you
know that.
pay to go there. You know.
Really, yeah, that's true. No, that's a good point. But really, from the people or my family, the family is close to me. I think that's the main common theme I can see, where that would be, a connective tissue to why we're a caring,
Yeah.
family-oriented
Interesting.
country.
What
And
do you
this
want
is
to?
from me not being a religious person at
Yeah.
all, so
Yeah.
very pretty much an atheist.
Yeah. What do you? I mean, you've had interaction with people from all over the world. You mentioned you had a Serbian friend,
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, there are some things that happen in Portugal that get lost in translation. There's some big cultural differences for people that when they come to Portugal in the way that Portuguese people do things and live their lives and interact. So in order to avoid some cultural shock some culture shock or some lost in translation moments, what would you want to tell people, warn people about with Portuguese people that they can expect, that they should be aware of?
I think I'm sure people have spoken to you about the greeting protocol, right? So I think that's an obvious one, because different people from different countries greet with different ways. So one is 2 kisses, some of them get 3 kisses.
Yeah.
And here in Portugal,
Does anybody give 4? Does anybody do 4?
Well, if they do, they're winning, because I think we have to up the ante all the way into lovemaking, when you greet people. So I think in Portugal, because of a very strict, and again, this might be because of religion, it's pretty much, here's how you do. You greet men and men greet with a handshake, right? Men and women greet with 1 kiss or 2 kisses to the face. Women and women greet with 2 kisses. And if men know each other long enough, then they hug. This is a greeting protocol, and it's very strict, and it's very strange. If somebody comes up differently with a different way of greeting when you meet somebody from another nationality. So I think that would be a first one. So be aware of what's the greeting protocol when coming to Portugal, but that's also true when you travel anywhere else. Other than that,
It's for a woman to be on the safe side. She can kiss anybody.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so that's nice. If you're a woman, the men, you can kiss the woman. Nice.
Yeah, but actually, it's really funny, because I think it's changing, and even the pandemic might have something to do with it. Where right now, the first approach, regardless of gender, I feel with most people, it's okay. Let's go for the handshake or for the fist bump. Yeah, something like that. But if you want to establish, I think, even familiarity, I think you try to go with the standard way we've been raised to. Even though it doesn't make any sense. Why can't men kiss each other on the cheek the way Italians do or whatever? So, but I think our upbringing is very firm on that, and that's probably one point of contention. That if you're not ready coming into Portugal, if you go in for a hug with a guy you just know, you'll most likely get hey, and like a pushback where I don't really know you. Why are you coming in for the hug? Let's just handshake. So I'd say that there's a strange formality to it, even though I think we as people are quite informal.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good point.
Okay. What else? What else should we know besides the kissing?
Besides the kissing, actually, there's it's interesting thing, because I know we're going to come to it eventually, but which is, do Portuguese people have a sense of humor? And I think that generally we take things seriously on a first approach. So in order for us to be in a humorous mood, there's a setting for it, and that setting is usually not when you first meet somebody.
So Portuguese people are funny, but it needs to be in the right scenario.
Yeah, I think you're allowed to be, because being funny, I think at least in Portugal, it relates to being open, so to openness. So if you're feeling open and vulnerable, and this is a vulnerable environment, then we can be funny. We make fun of that guy. Then he shoots a quip at me. Then blah blah blah, and it's for back and forth. And you can find this in a small cafe in Portugal, in a small cafe in Lisbon, in a team we were working with after we established confidence. But like first or second, everybody's very. There's a very strong sense of responsibility, I think, within the Portuguese, which is why I think at first glance we're likely not funny. At first glance, we might seem boring, but if you build confidence and you build trust with a Portuguese person, then you can see those sort of the funny side of that person emerging. So I think this goes back to things to be careful, or not to be careful, but to be aware, is that we don't hand out our openness willingly or easily. Okay, I think you have to earn our trust. So first meet, you'll likely not get much of somebody. Maybe not much empathy, but by the time you start working with them more often or meeting with them more often, then you can peel out the layers of why this is funny or why this person is interesting. So I think we're potentially very good open people, but we're by default closed, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, it does make sense. And do you have any insight as to why? You think,
Once again, I think upbringing, I think upbringing, I think what I see in myself, and I see a lot of pretty much everybody else, and this may become because, of the timing of it. So, which is my generation, I'm going to be 39 next month, was raised on, here you are the first of the family generation to have a real chance to get a real proper high level education, or at least the second at most. Second generation, and you need to be responsible, and you need to get a job, get a family, blah 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 blah. So I think that sort of traditional way of thinking really burns a mindset within us as to, okay, so this is me. And then you find ways to unleash. For me, it's comedy. That's how I can let go of those leashes that bind me to a good social behavior. But I think most people are stuck there. So they only get those leashes off when they get with comfortable people, with either it's family, either it's a group of friends or something like that. So I think it comes up to the upbringing, and that might have to do, like my parent. I remember my father was the first of his family, I mean, to get an education, right? My mother was the first of her family to get an education. Her parents didn't have a college degree. They were people who were working on the land or doing I don't know, some administrative work. So I think and now the generation of my kids will be let's call it the second or third generation, where they have a bunch of privileges, let's call, or an open path to be whatever they want. So their upbringing is going to be probably different than the one I got in terms of the how you realize these things. So I'd say that right now, the dominant generation is one where it's been imprinted onto us that work hard, do your job, be a provider for your family, and so that's always at the forefront of our mindsets.
Is it? I mean, does that make your job as a comedian difficult? Like, do you find that people coming in and you're in a room full of strangers? Is that? I mean, does the crowd take a while to warm up because of that? Do you find that it's a different scenario?
Nowadays, it's easier.
Because one thing I know, that Portuguese people do have the ability to laugh at themselves. Like, they don't take themselves so seriously.
Well, actually, here's the funny thing. I think they can laugh at themselves as long as it's part of a bigger construct. So if I'm doing a bit and I'm going on about how, Portuguese people always stop at car accidents to see what's going on, and that causes more traffic, people can relate to that behavior.
They do actually,
Yeah, even if it's on the other side of the road, right?
Yeah.
So this is a very typical Portuguese behavior. But if I were to say, look at this guy, he's stopping to watch, then he probably, if it's not if he wasn't warmed up yet, he might take it seriously, So I think we're okay with being made of if we're within the group of, the Portuguese stereotype or the Portuguese behaviors. Regarding I think nowadays it's better because stand-up comedy only really became a thing in like the last, let's say, 80 years.
Okay.
So now people know what stand-up comedy is. People have a bit more knowledge of what goes into doing stand-up comedy, the preparation, the writing, the suffering, the hit and miss of it all. So I think nowadays it's better. But I've done plenty of gigs in my life where I'd go up, and the bar owner didn't even advertise. People weren't there to see anything, and just the attitude would be like, who's this guy going up on stage, and why is he ruining my night right now? So and then that's a fight that you'll most likely lose. But that's a fight that I've gone through plenty. So I'd say that nowadays people are more, because they understand what goes into it, they're more open to comedy, and because there's ironically a protocol in comedy, right? So it's not a free-flowing thing. Is comedian says something, I laugh if I find it funny, and we all want to be a part of a group. So if I'm in a group, I found it funny, everybody found it funny, oh, so I'm out, and you open more and more and more and more into hopefully building a really nice set. So I think, but that's common in the world. People want to belong, and so ultimately that comes across if you have the right setting for comedy.
Interesting. I love the example you gave about Portuguese people stopping when there's a traffic accident.
Yeah.
I mean, give us another thing that people screw with that will be a typical Portuguese behavior that one might see when they visit Portugal, and they, just so that they know, don't stress out. This is just what we do here. This is just a.
Yeah. I have quite a few from driving, because I drive.
Okay, driving's good, because that's the only time I hear people complaining really about Portuguese.
Yeah,
driving,
that's a good
because
point.
They're aggressive drivers, eh? And in the country, aggressive drivers, and in the countryside, it's even worse.
I'm sorry, you said a grace of drivers?
Aggressive.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's interesting view. Yeah, here's what I'd say. So I think driving is a place where most Portuguese people are aggressive, like not necessarily by driving, but also by the way they behave. To look at this mother. What is he doing here? We're always right. Everybody's always wrong. And whenever I'm doing something wrong, I have a really good reason for it. Therefore, I'm still a good driver. Oh, why are you parked in second lane? Because I need to pick up my grandma. So that's okay. I know I'm causing this traffic, but if I drive through it, look at this asshole parked second lane. So we do take a lot of ownership about our driving. That's a really good point, and I don't know why. But yeah, so I think you'd see a lot of mid-lane driving. So out of the three, we just sit in the mid lane because it's safe, it's easy. I think in the cities, if we have what we call weekend drivers, which is, during the week, everybody's in a hurry to go everywhere. Likely 90% of the people are doing that route again, the same route they've been doing for I don't know how many days. So everybody knows all of the cheats to get there faster. And then you go on the weekend, and you still have that mindset of the week drive and knowing the cheats, and you just see some guy driving so slowly and just jamming up traffic, and you get annoyed. Okay, so I'd say beware of weekday drivers on weekends, because they'll be over aggressive. And know that most likely you'll get a finger flipped at you while driving in Portugal, but it's not personal. It's likely not the first finger he or she have flipped that
He'll
morning.
flip it at anybody.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Probably
because we're always right.
Maybe family members, in-laws.
Oh yeah. That's I'll just like, Mom, here's this. Yeah.
No Portuguese man will ever flip his mother.
No, that's true. That's true. Not at mom. True. Yeah. We're scared. We're too scared. That's a fair point. We have a lot of respect for our mothers. Yeah. Good point.
Awesome. Hugo, what is one thing that you want people to remember and take away from our conversation? Just one thing.
Just the one thing. I think, about our country, it's a safe country. It's a safe place. It's a really calm place to be in. And if that's something you value, and trust me, there's room for everything else right now. If you go into downtown Lisbon, you get the bohemian side of Portugal as well. And you can have a lot of fun with it. But I think that always, I think safety is something I value a lot. And I think that you get a lot of that in Portugal right now. And so, yeah, I think that's the main thing I hope people take away from what Portugal is essentially deep down. In spite of all, it's, we have some problems too, we talk a lot about the good stuff. and maybe bad behaviors. But as a country, we have a lot of issues as well. But I think at the bottom line of it will remain, hopefully, a safe place for people to live in.
Yeah, it's true. How can people follow you online, step to step with your work, and connect?
Yeah, well, if you're into the comedy thing, I think Instagram is the best way right now. I'm at Hugo H. Rosa. And if you're into data science and into computer stuff, you can just add me on LinkedIn. Always interested in doing some networking as well. And then hopefully at some point, some stage, either in English or in Portuguese. I do most of my gigs in Lisbon, but I'm actually going into Porto today to do a small gig as well. So hopefully you'll find me on stage and you'll find me funny.
What's the other H for? Hugo H. What's the other H?
Oh, it's actually it's not a common Portuguese name. I think it's a Greek name. It's Hermógenes, which is it's a really I've looked it up. It's I think the origin of the word or the etymology of the word it means it's something related to Hercules, which is it like either a descendant of Hercules or something like that. I remember looking it up on Wikipedia, and it was the name of like a very unflattered student of Socrates, I think. There is like he's mentioned somewhere along his books, not in a flattering way, like not being a good philosophist. And it's a name it's been carried down. It's a really strange name. I remember being mocked from it as a kid, but I always liked the name and I passed it on to my kids. And I've made a point. I know it's a strange name, but I want my kids to have it. Yeah, that's what the H is for.
I also got mocked for my middle name, Vaughan. Like Vaughan? Vince Vaughn. Yeah, like Vince Vaughn, but Vaughn. They used to say Vaughn in the USA and things like that. Kids are mean. Kids are mean.
Yeah. My name is Rosa. So Rosa is Rose, pretty much, right? And I remember being mocked for it. When I was in school, there was a doll called Rosinha that sang a song. And I heard that song being sung a lot in school for a few years.
I mean, see the things that we remember. You see the things.
Yeah.
My son's teacher, her name is Rosinha.
Really?
Yeah. But he told me her name was Pink because he translated it to English for me.
That's true. That's also true.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
Accurate.
He's not wrong. Yeah. Hugo, thank you so much for being on the podcast. A question that we ask all of our guests. Portugal, the simple life. Why?
Hard one again. Because we take care of our own, we mind our own business, and we make things simple, I think, as well. We enjoy the simple things.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much for the invitation. Really nice speaking to you. Really nice seeing the podcast that you have, and it's doing more for Portugal than most Portuguese people. Really nice. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I'm gonna let you call it.
Yeah, Dylan. That's a wrap.
So thank you once again to Hugo, and thank you to all of you for listening. Please subscribe, share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, and please leave a comment or a review. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And as we say in Portugal, abraço. Welcome to the simple life.